On the Myths and Rituals of Scithain by A. Morain. Horus wanted to haunt people from the grave, and that introduces us to the concept of a Scythian Siberian through Greece and the Celtic into the British Isles culture called Scithain. This is in regard to the leech, corpse, draugr, undead ones, wraith, or whatever you call those who live like the disincarnate spirits. It posits that the names, places, and symbols have something to teach us as we merge with the shadowy worlds of spirit. Bin Scathan, peak of what takes flight, is the central place of focus, and then Gradhalan, beautiful trench, Bin Mar, hill that's full, and Clanish, village, and the Outer Hebrides. Aside from that, and the order of 9 angles inclusions, Alexander, Aristarchus, Morain also connects it to the European, Luciferian, vampiric, lycanthropic, chthonic, drug and plant cults, druid, idealized Britain, and, from the Arthurian myths, Owain Mad Morain, born of goodness as a son with privilege, the Maban ap Madron, son of the Great Mother, and Morfydd Ferch Morain, maiden daughter of privilege family, connections to Arthurian legend, Holy Grail myths, ancestor worship cults, multicultural claims about witches, specifically under Morgan and such other entities, and more spiritual connections to UFO or alien accounts, but not the capitalist or materialist communist inflections of the New Age. Rather than book and item collecting, the focus is being a medium. And making the items at hand work. And in reference to Owain and Morfydd as the children of Morgan, the queen. Before getting into the rites of Draken Covenant, let's look at the symbols in Scithain by A. Morain, a not completely realistic vampire black, flies from the right and is connected to the year 2016. It is a symbol of right-hand path, connecting, drawing in or down energy, Satanism, and is labeled with the Fein year, which we now find ourselves in the 135th, sanctioned by the causal year of that calendar system. Then we have a confusing symbol. To explain, adorning the index. It seems to connect to the dark feminine forces and the development or practices that entails. It helps to know some constellations, order of 9 angle symbols, ogams, runes, and temple of blood sigils as well. The solitary symbol seems to be upon ascent by rooting to the elements. We have a werewolf that can be said to represent the primal and aware states. Finally, we have the Dracon Covenant shield that I color with seasonal considerations, which couple with a moral and immoral regards. And the Book of Dark Mothers by Temple of Blood is one of the books sourced in this text, and I don't know, aside from quotes, where anybody can read any of that. So before we go any further, on the upper left, sort of almost entirely the left side, we have that symbol from the index. On the upper right, we have that rooting symbol, and the shield there with the different grays and the whites and the black and the yellow and the orange and the red and the purple and the blue and the green. We have that. And we have Scithain in different languages. First, we can consider the methods. Some rituals are without instructions, but involve substances and implications of how to go about it. Some are about what you don't do, how you pay attention, how you direct, how you connect, how you work internal spots and external spots as well, right? How you dedicate a process or what you transcend. Some will take the symbols and unfold them, make that the only thing in their awareness, or shift away from awareness of it. Different states and stations are used to know by experience. Some from psychic tracers between people and things, but others will break from the consciousness of being in the body. The blood are the representation of it on a spiritual level, can be manipulated by more than just blood flow techniques. Hypnagogia or parasomnia are opportunities to embrace the encounters with entities that are usually one's opposite gender, and to work with your response to other such beings too. So is intentional intentional alterations of work, food, and drink amounts and schedules. Scrying tools can be decorated for their use, but it is best not to narrow the use by permanent signs. It helps to know mythological structures and their meanings. Then, pathworking becomes easy. Initiations can be into categories or alchemical stages, but the point here is more of stages of community. In the first initiation of Dracon Covenant, one affirms one's place in Dracon Covenant with the Void Mother and partaking of the Unholy Grail. In the second initiations, the message is received for you as an individual. You receive it. And one is sanctified in Moon Divinus for the Void Mother to be of empiric extension for all the Dark Ones. Moon to Mercury, Moon to Mars, Moon to Sun, Moon to Jupiter, Moon to Saturn, Mercury to Venus, Mercury to Sun, Mercury to Mars, Mercury to Jupiter, Mercury to Saturn, Venus to Sun, Venus to Mars, Venus to Jupiter, Venus to Saturn, Sun to Mars, Sun to Jupiter, Sun to Saturn, Mars to Jupiter, Mars to Saturn, Jupiter to Saturn, Moon to Earth, Saturn to the stars, and all other paths will be employed with trances and four-sided crystals. Only one such is needed. In the future, different energies and direct astronomical associations will be worked with. The future the further initiations will connect to what are called the dark gods, mundane world as a means, and the working of the community towards incarnating a different aeon. The peaceful is in the time when the demons greet the setting sun with scent and postures. The chants and intentions are not to force forms into the situations. The land gate is then formed by the crystal used therein, which is stored for later use. Tarot and other oracles need to be with minimal abrogation to the sort of spiritual path one is upon. One doesn't need that many different ritual or ritualized tools, and what is available of a category will work just fine. Mystical names and oaths need to be specific and about what works in the sacred and social functions. This can start with making a pact for the dark and void with a loyalty above clandestine immorality. The importance is not to make a coven a cult of self. It helps to base things upon states and stations already known. Some will go all in with rituals and scripture in other languages, but if not linked to using the egregor of the myths, of it being revealed or inspired by unseen beings, and of course the implied things, I would drop it off when it comes to invented spiritual practices. Like if you get a chant in a particular language or whatever, that's fine. But and that's why in this paper I'm not going over all the terms and names of beings and what they mean and all that. Curses involve what represents the person. Movement and positions represent control by oneself, and then transformation by a great one or accumulation. Binding also uses what represents or was used by the person worked upon, but the goal is to not inhibit their ability to be of use. Blood centers are formed through collective exchange of physical items and group ritual that forms a focus of the collective. The arcane door and chain of devouring are on this principle. Offerings, feedings, sealing, the Orth ceremonies. It is preferred to occur between Beltane and Aralitha, are Yule and Beltane for vampirism in Draken Covenant, the Crimson Mass, and basic group ceremonies are also in this line. Aramis is the fourth degree of 7. It is a ritual seclusion and deprivation of modern comforts, except the clothes and food products with you. their own name and the aforementioned routing symbol is on a paper in a bottle with what was from one's body put into the bottle for the month of retreat or separation, from mundane society. When it is over, the contents are emptied into water, chanting for Mercury to Sun, and that it is the flowing waters of Earth. This gets connected to mooned Mercury and the red thirst. The Roundwaitha is without the names and extra details, but involves being in a cave or underground between a pair of full moons. Caradog in Shropshire was considered the ideal place. The ceremony of Aramis is upon its own version of the renunciation concept of Proverbs 9:6 and Romans 12:2. The blood-filled are covered with blood. Nature in Isaiah 34:6. The change overhead from a crystal in Ezekiel 1:22, and the descent into hell of Psalms 16:10, Acts 2:27, and 1 Peter 3:19. In general, using the name and attributes of a being with offerings will summon. Sometimes there needs to be particular processes and displays. In Dracon Covenant, pilgrimage honors the places set up by its order, and the megaliths are such places of the ancients, particularly in the Hebrides. Funerals can be preemptive and treated as a sacrifice would have. Droch Tarog is constantly flowing water, analogous to Aktlal Maka. Or it may not be like the shrine with you waved over it amongst bell ringing. Well, I mean, the ritual is there's a shrine with you waved over it, but I'm not sure about the meaning of the term because I couldn't find it looking it up. Draugruna, deathless working, and Draumruna, dream work, bring people into contact with the shades of the dead, the bringing of bodies close, in a sense, towards eternal ends. Some stars and planets are preferred, as are particular types of circumstances of them. In Dracon Covenant, the choices, methods, and mythological thinking with stargates and all is pretty much as the Order of Nine Angles has it. Drug use and item use is with the symbolism and is identified with parts of the body. Blood fetting attempts to produce a homunculus with the fertilized chicken or snake egg kept in the dark for months with blood, baptized afterwards, and named. Either it is sacrificed or kept alive. Some may want to live in sensory deprivation, hooked up to the blood of fellow covenant members, but there are risks other than long-term health ones to the blood tank operation. There are other talks about powers and stuff that people get into, but the Lanawaith of the Lycanthropos seems to be centered on Lanu or Janus passageway worship, and modes that may be extended towards being as a wolf and black dogs, but those forms are their specters are more common forms to represent with predation. The use of drugs probably gives the perceptions described, but a sane experience of the actions and perceptions are possible soberly. Koinobiakos, common living, is upon the principle of ancestry and land on a hermetic level. Dracon Covenant recommends a self-sustained commune in the UK. It is dedicated to specific alchemical change and prepares for the arrival of Vindix, victory, the Order of Nine Angles Antichrist. Asleep or awake, the whole idea of Dracon Covenant is about becoming as one with those called dark gods, and being part of transforming the mundane past the liberal and conservative orders that limit us to a merely worldly existence with inferior masters.